was like an IGN interview about Tekken, and it's like some dudes at the company interviewing Harada, Michael Murray, and Kohei Ikeda about Heihachi guest characters and the future of Tekken. So I technically want to see that, right? It's all the way right here. Let's check this out. Honda Civic ad, oh cheese and rice, BMW, get the fuck out of my face. Mishima Heihachi.
So I guess to start this off, why did you lie to us? How is
why did you lie to us?
Back from the dead, and you know what made you want to bring Heihachi back as the third DLC character for Tekken 8?
He didn't mean to lie or anything about that. It was, you know, Tekken 7 really focused on the story arc between Heihachi and his son Khaiza, and so we really wanted to show that kind of final conclusion. And he seemed to die at that point, right? But then after that happened, Tekken 8 was released. And we put a lot of effort into the story, and the fans really seemed to be engaged with that. And as that was happening, we were kind of feeling that the players kind of missed him as well.
Right.
Obviously, we did too. So it was kind of decided later on that we would do that. So it wasn't a lie. And then also...
So it wasn't a lie.
The timing is right since it's the 30th anniversary of the franchise. And so
Right, like 30th. I always forget, like, now Tekken is in like 30 years of just history, 30-year anniversary. So it makes sense that like Heihachi is coming back, right? I mean, he's the literal like dude that technically started everything. But he's not like, you know, the progenitor of like all things like Tekken, but he started the King of Iron Fist tournament. He was the first main bad guy in the OG like Tekken 1. You play as like Kazuya and then you throw him off a cliff. And yeah, that just like, he's like one of the most historical, culturally impactful video game, fighting game bosses there is. Next to Bison, next to Rugal, next to another SNK boss, Geese Howard. I don't know if there's like any other like final boss right there. Like definitely one of those big monumental video game like characters that just defined video games. He's Heihachi fucking Mishima. He's the dude with the bald head and the spiky and with the bald head and the irregular ass hair. He's that guy.
We need all three of the machines. He's the most iconic in the series, right? So, you know, after the fact, we did kind of make the preparations. You know, Reina, kind of that link that she has to Heihachi, and then also the logo, the 30th anniversary. If you look closely at it, you can see that it's comprised of devil wings, two different styles. But if you take a step back and look at it, it actually looks like the silhouette of Heihachi's face, right? So we were doing some of the preparations in the background.
I know it's early, but can you tell us a little bit about how this Tekken 8 version of Heihachi will be different from previous iterations, and maybe like how he will use heat to his advantage?
Like you imagine, it is a bit too early to be talking many details about this character. But to give some hints, he's a very powerful playstyle throughout the series, so we tried to recreate that in Tekken 8. So the focus is on that, but also if you saw little story hints about the monks in the footage and what he has to do with them, and that maybe will dictate some of his moveset as well. So there's some hints there. We hope that you look forward to hearing more about it.
Yeah, because that's the thing, like, with, like, Tekken 8 and the heat system, this was kind of, like, the case where, like, every single, like, character in Tekken 8, how are you gonna make, like, each character, like, dynamic with, like, the heat system that Tekken 8 is obviously fucking advertising? I mean, of course, over the span of time, right, heat is more or less just a way, more or less just, like, an install for you to do more block advantage to get the opponent to mess up, right? That's all it like really is for. But it allows some unique and interesting strings that you couldn't do with without heat, right, so to speak. For example, like Lars unlocks new moves that opens up pressure, right? Shaheen has well, everybody has like access to like new moves, and of course like Heat Smash, right? Being like the new Rage Drive, you could just like spam like a Heat Smash, and you could just go for like plus frames. So how would Heat work with Heihachi, right? Other than just like unlocking new moves, but I want to see like a little bit of like a Doria, like upgraded versions of like his EWGF, and you could like go for like different strings, you know. Kazuya, Reina, Devil Jin all have like the Doria, and like, you know, it's just like that in like block string. What if you do like Doria on block, and it becomes like, you know, you can it becomes like a follow-up, or you can do like a low, or do like a fake out sort of thing. What sort of things can you do with Heihachi in the next round? And of course, right, it's way early into that. I'm just like throwing out like crazy ass like series. We won't see Heihachi until like he's coming in autumn, right? We won't see Heihachi until like September or October. Hell, he might even come in like November.
心が不安定な状態ゆえ心技体の均衡が取れておらんのだ。
So another thing that you've announced is this partnership with Chipotle and Nike. Can you talk a little bit about how both those deals came about?
コラボレーション自体は
It really is several different cases. Sometimes they approach us. Other times it's something that we ask of them. But there needs to be, you know, the right conditions, such as it's a win for us, it's a win for them, but more importantly, a win also for the fans. So,
right.
For example, with the Nike thing, you know, Nakatsu and I are both big sneaker, myself and him, are fans, but there's a lot of people on the team as well that love Nike. And so it just happened that that's something that there's a lot of sneakerheads in the fighting game community as a whole. And then also on the Nike side, we found out they really knew about Kazuya's being a sneakerhead, and we had a lot of fighting game fans on the Nike side. So it was a win-win for everyone. And also, you know, like Chipotle as well. They've been supporting the fighting game community. It's a good match with gamers and their franchises. And then also, if it's something the fans are enjoying, obviously that's good for us from our side as well. So it came about that, hey, that's a win for everyone. Let's do it. So although the start is different, you know, the conditions are pretty similar.
So we're half a year.
I mean, as like, you know, aforementioned like background information, Harada has been pretty vocal about topics that people or fans like ask him on like Twitter, like for instance collaborations, right? A lot of people have been not necessarily like pestering, but you know, just like asking Harada like, hey, right, if you're gonna be including guest characters like how you did in like Tekken 7, can you please bring back old school IPs into your game, or even like revive old school IPs like Soul Calibur, for instance? And he gave like a long ass elongated like thesis paper, because you know that's how Twitter, when you're in the higher up and verification works. If you're verified, if you got like the check mark next to your like username, you could like tweet for longer, even like writing out like 20-page college essays sort of thing. So basically he said that like, yeah, he wishes for Soul Calibur to like come back because they have a burning drive and a passion for the Soul Calibur team. Tekken, he considers Tekken to be like the black sheep, right? Which is, you know, astounding in the modern age because everybody likes Tekken, everybody loves Tekken. All of my friends are big like Tekken heads, mostly 3D, but nowadays it's Tekken. But dude, like Tekken was really like rough back then in the beginning. Soul Calibur just felt very like colorful and organic. Tekken was just very like stiff. So yeah, a lot of like the problems that came about for like Soul Calibur was just through its own like internal staff, you know, especially the harkings of Soul Calibur, what was it, 5 and 6 really like plummeted them down. They were like, you know, keeping themselves alive with 6, but ultimately in the end Soul Calibur just did not like survive, and did not survive like officially, but it still kept alive by like fans. And so if Harada was asked to like be part of like the Project Soul team, he would say, well, maybe, but he wants to do like Tekken 9 since this is like his like baby, his like child that he wants to like nurture and care and like grow for. And of course he wants to see Soul Calibur back. Dude, he's the guy that wants like Virtua Fighter back. He's an old school egghead, right? No offense, but like that's like what he desires and wishes for. So for like Soul Calibur, yeah, definitely he wants to see like a comeback, but you know, like for a new Soul Calibur, stars have to like align, and he really wants that, trust me. But yeah, like with collabs, right? Collabs will be like, you know, technically coming in pretty soon, but because everybody wants like guest characters, considering how really astronomical Tekken 7 really was. But you know, for these types of like collabs, there's got to be like some sort of like give or take, right? You can't just like expect like your favorite collab character to work with, you know, the Tekken project and have it be successful. Sure, you may like it, but what about the developer side? What about the other people outside of yourself, for instance, that want this collaboration to work, you know? Nike, for example, right? It's a really like odd choice. I'm not a big like shoe fan, but there are like a lot of people out there, right, that are just accustomed / ingrained into like the whole like shoe fad, right? Don't test my Jordans or don't test my Tims, you know, shoes are becoming like a big like fashion now. Or well, it always has been like a fashion, but now like sneakers are like popping because of like NBA and stuff like that, and even like gamers now love like shoes. Now the new trend is like, you know, Crocs, right? Like sandals. Like the latest fashion now, every time I go out, is just some dude in like sports attire, like the very like minimalist of like clothing, no fashion, no nothing, in my opinion, no fashion or nothing, and just Crocs and just sandals. That's really much it. You put on like all black and you're like good to go. You're handsome as fuck. Back in my day, my parents were like, you gotta be like color concise, right? You gotta be color choice. Don't pick like colors that like clash, right? Sort of things like that. Don't wear like all like black or like gray. Go like complementary like colors. That's how I was like raised. That's how my dad raised me, with like different like colors and shit, fashion choices and shit. But of course, right? This is like a different time now. I'm like an old ass man, and now fashion is like completely different than what it is when I was like a baby. So Nikes and Crocs are like the new like cutting edge fashion choices, and you know, it ties back to quote unquote lore, with like Khaiza having like a whole like Foot Locker emporium of all his different kicks, you know? So a collaboration ultimately has to work if both sides agree for a positive like net worth. Nike has to agree that like, oh, shoes are always like cool and stylish. They show that shit on like advertisements. How would that work with like Tekken? We could like make something work as long as it brings us like revenue, right? It's like give or take for like each side, right? We'll give you Tekken, but we'll give you like Tekken, but you have to advertise our shoes. We'll give you Nike, but you have to make it in a way that like it's lore like canonical or like it's financially like successful. As for like Chipotle, yeah, like that collaboration is also a little bit weird, but it's like, you know, food, video game with food collaborations have been there through like since like 10 years ago. I remember like back in the day that like Mortal Kombat, NetherRealm had like a Domino's sponsorship, and it was a tie-in for fucking Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, or Cup Noodle in Tekken back in the day for Noctis Lucis Kylum. But those were like hints and like suggestions. Chipotle is like a very new age like restaurant. Like I said in the EVO streams, it's good, but I'm not totally like over the moon about like Chipotle. Sure, it's good, but I rather prefer like Taco Bell more than anything. But the general like public, the new age like public really loves like Chipotle because it's the new hangout spot for a lot of like young kids, a lot of like, well, even like kids like my age. I know there's like one Chipotle near my college where I work at. And across from it, there are people doing like construction work for a new building, and it's just perfectly placed at the corner, so everybody can like go to like Chipotle and just eat there, grab like some food, albeit prices are expensive. But this is what I said about like Chipotle by my first impressions of the chain. It's just Subway but with Mexican food. That's really much it. Over-related like prices and things like that, and a lot of like rumors and like hot topic talks. I hear negative things about like Chipotle of how it's like you know overshadowing their workers hella too much by managers. You have to, you know, be respectful to like customers or things like that. I don't know, maybe like the second one might be a little bit far-fetched, but the first one definitely for sure, that people were like outraged by the prices and the meat portions of Chipotle. But it's definitely one of those like newer chains, like newer like things, like Boba. Boba is hella super popular with the Gen Z kids. Anime spots like ramen shops like Crew Ramen are definitely there. And of course, right, this is not just with like Tekken, but Street Fighter has also done this as well. Like last year, right? Street Fighter had a whole like Chipotle collab back in the day, and it was like tied to like fight money or like in-game like cosmetics for like a world tour. So Chipotle is like a big popular spot for gamers, and so why not do it with not just Street Fighter, but also with Tekken? Is like a win-win situation. And Tekken, of course, like agreed. So with collaborations, right, ultimately, once again, said it for like the fourth or like maybe like fifth time at this point, there's gotta be, you know, a give and a take, right? There's gotta be a win, not just like on one side, but also on the other side. The collab may be a little bit like weird, and it's not like an official collab like a character or anything like that, but hey, like at one end, you know, as a fighting game fan, more collabs more means like more recognition. So the more like collabs, the better for that, you know, global outreach. Hell, we just watched yesterday, the International Olympic Committee are now going to be adding esports as an Olympic category. So we're getting there.
Into Tekken 8's life cycle, how happy are you with how the game has been received by fans? And then separately, how have the sales so far met with your own expectations?
まず売上規模から言う。
After the game release, it's been 6 months, like you said. We're happy with how the title's performing. It's continued at a faster pace than the Tekken 7. Also considering that compared to the other fighting game titles, we haven't done the previous generation of hardware. It's only on the current generation. So that considered as well, I think it's doing well. And then also from the community's perspective, the game's been released and it was supported a lot by new players. Some of the people who've been with the series for a long time, they voiced some concerns, etc. at the beginning, but those opinions change over the time. We've noticed during tournaments progressing, etc. People have more time with the game. Even the more advanced players kind of got a handle on it, and so their opinion has seemed to change in the past 3 months. And I would add the same. We had to make a brand new game. It had to feel like a proper installment. So Nakatsu and his team really changed the game system a lot and really clarified the key concepts of the characters and their strengths and weaknesses. And also we did an update recently that addressed some of the things that the older players didn't like, maybe enhancing some of the defensive options, etc. So I think the game's really in a good place currently.
Many of the core mechanics of Tekken 8 have changed since the game was first revealed. Like specifically, I remember
Tekken hella popular. All I gotta say.
A little bit differently when I first saw it. Now that you've had 6 months since release and have heard feedback from both casual players and top-level pros, do you envision any more sweeping changes to the core systems in Tekken 8, or even some new additions?
Teen 8, the captions.
Like you said, we've made some changes to the heat system after release. The reasoning being that although the concept was clear and we felt we achieved it, that it was very fun to be on the offense and to open up your opponent and to be able to do damage, etc. Was quite exhilarating, but we realized that some of the elements that people liked about a 3D fighting game, being able to have the defensive options of sidestepping or using that 3D environment to your advantage strategically, was a little bit weaker perhaps than in past installments. So with the update, like we were mentioning, we enhanced those features a little bit more. So we currently think that the game is in a good place, and there are no further, we've already announced this to the player base as a whole, but we don't plan on making any sweeping changes to the game system itself. We plan on proceeding with this, although we'll continue to be fixing bugs and things like that. And also, like we talked about today, more about the product as a whole, adding new features or making quality of life improvements, trying to make it the best Tekken we can, since it is, after all, the 30th anniversary of the series.
That's some really good points by what Harada and Michael Murray translated, right? The heat system is really as its forefront, aggression. Gotta be aggressive. It's just a way to open up people, and that's kind of a good thing, right? It's because, in exactly the previous game, Tekken 7, do you know how slow that is? And do you know how boring that is, to watch at competitive play? You watch two characters Korean backdashing, Pakistani backdashing, here and there, and there would be no engagement or no fight. Tekken 8 is a way to see the excitement happen at full force to a casual level perspective, right? Heat is not just heat is not just a way for casuals to get into the game, right? Because that's also another thing, right? The reason why I may have said this before, but the reason why Tekken 8 is so popular for new gen or new casuals is that it's a lot more easier to understand than, let's say, a game like Street Fighter 6. Albeit, a lot of people jumped into Street Fighter 6, of course, right? At the first month. But there was definitely some, difficulty issues with people not understanding how to do special moves. Even to this day, I had this well, not, I didn't have it personally, but I saw this funny post of, Lily Pichu, right? The girl that beat Harada Tekken at the Sejam Slam, beat a pro event at Evo Day 1, right? And you know what she was doing? She was getting coaching actively by Fidix, right? which is of course, you know, they're newcomers, so they don't know like the things that pro competitive players like Lily Pichu is like a guppy compared to like Arslan Ash. But you know, Harada also like played, right? Because he loves being in the community, and Lily Pichu beat Harada's ass with like, you know, the one rage R button that just always like somehow works for Lily, you know? She won. Heat is not only just a way to like open up people, but it's also like a flashy, cool, like, oh wow, like glitter in your eyes thing that gets like casuals to like drawn in, and it's sort of like, you know, a way for new players to get used to Tekken. You know what it is? It's like a better version of Soul Calibur 6's Reversal Edge. Right? Reversal Edge was just like this like big like armor move, and you could do like a vertical slash and go to like this big RPS like effect. But in here, it's a lot more tamer, right? It's not like a big damaging move that leads to like a big like RPS cinematic like game event. No. It's just like a way to stop the opponent from pressuring you, and you get to do your own cool shit. It's a way for you to not learn about combos and just like go nuts, have fun. That's really like what it is, you know? At like, if you want to think about like a day-to-day experience level of like Tekken 8 and not the competitive side of it, not learning like frame data, that's what Heat is, you know? And I feel like Tekken like grasps that, you know? That's their way of tackling the accessibility issue with when it comes to like fighting games and new players. Not dismissing that Street Fighter 6 has done a lot more, that I feel like a lot more, but it's Tekken, dude. It's Tekken. Not a lot of people jive with Street Fighter unless you're like a big Street Fighter / Capcom fan. And Tekken's just been the one that like attracts a lot of audiences. It's just how it be. But yeah, like Heat is like not just, you know, one way, but also like another way. It complements everyone.
Off-the-wall characters like Gon, Mokujin, Roger, Alex, Kuma, and Panda. Since Tekken 6, though, it's only really been Kuma and Panda representing that kind of character archetype.
Talking about the weird characters. What do you say about the weird characters? I want more weird characters, not just waifus.
We could see those characters come back.
I want to see a fucking Velociraptor with punching gloves.
So the strategy, the thinking behind the franchise hasn't changed. It's not like we're intentionally removing those characters per se. But if you really take a close look at how they were back in those iterations, it was more of like they were, we call them compatible characters in Japanese, which means like the moveset is another character and it's just the skin is different, right?
Echo fighters.
Characters in the past, not just the animals that you mentioned. And over the series, we've tried to flesh them out and to do away with that portion. So making sure that each of the characters are unique. So even if you have Kuma and Panda, their moves might be slightly different, or their rage arts or whatever. They're their own unique character. So that was the main thinking behind that. And it wasn't intentional that the other characters are not making an appearance. That said, in order to get everyone's favorites and then also include characters like that, we'd have to have a roster of like 60-some characters, which just isn't viable from a launch. And then also for the player base to learn how to play against that number of characters is a lot. So we wouldn't say they're not going to make an appearance ever again. That's just the current state.
So guest characters have...
It's just the current state, yeah, exactly. I mean, there was like a fascinating interview, but there was a fascinating retrospective video series called Thorgy's Arcade, and I watched it like recently, and it talks about, and the retrospective he was talking about in one particular series is about KOF. You know how easy it was for SNK to just like port over characters for the next game? Dude, there was like KOF 96, 97, 99, 2000, 2001, 2002. Fighting game companies had like the easiest asset they can do, and they could just like port over old assets from the previous game and into like the new game. Hell, Mario vs. Capcom is very like infamous for that, you know? Mario vs. Capcom 2 had like weird like newcomers, weird and cool newcomers, but most of the MVC2 roster were just based from old sprites from the older Marvel vs. Capcom games, and they just like copy and paste that on over, and that's like your new game, right? And for here, like Tekken, right? Albeit, you know, it's very hard to get a lot of characters in this day and age of fighting games, right? After with like, you know, COVID and everything, a lot of fighting games just seem to be slower now. They're not very like rapid pace, and of course, fighting games had like a few dark ages themselves, not just with COVID, but also with like the 2000s. There were fighting games, you know, here and there, but it didn't really spark back up until the rise of Street Fighter 4, and that's when every fighting game company decided to like, you know, come back and just make a name for themselves once again. So yeah, we live in like in a day and age for fighting games where now you can't get like a fighting game like every year. Let's say like Street Fighter 6, you won't get Street Fighter 7 until let's say like 2030 sort of things, you know? You won't get a new KOF game, which launched at like 2022. You won't get a new one in the next like 2 or 3 years until after Garo, Mark of the Wolves, and a new Art of Fighting or a new Samurai Shodown RPG comes out. You gotta wait a bit before we get like potentially a new one, you know? As for like weird characters, yeah, I mean, that's fair because Kuma and Panda have been in the previous game. I'm not sure if they were in Tekken 6 or Tekken 5, but it definitely like lines up, you know? Kuma and Panda have pre-existing assets and caricatures that are very easy to just, you know, transfer on over to Tekken 8. But I will say, like, you know, dude, let there be more like weird characters. We don't get a lot of like weird characters, especially in Tekken. We get a lot of like, you know, old school favorite classics, humanoid characters, but dude, where's the fucking raptor with the boxing gloves? Where's the fucking kangaroo? Where's the weird factor of Tekken, and not just like the Mishima Zaibatsu and the G Corporation, you know? Like, it's fine and all, but that's why like I love about like Tekken 8 story, not just, you know, lore and just narration and story, but every character has like a place, albeit, you know, little, big, or little. Leo fighting Azucena in a Lord of the Rings-esque like wars-ridden like battlefield, and Azucena's there, it's like, I'm just there for coffee. I'm just there for coffee. I'm a coffee addict. I don't care. I don't give a shit of like these two like anime dudes duking it out in space. I'm here for coffee. Let there be more like guest characters, you know? I want there to be, not guest characters, weird characters. I want there to be more like slices of life to these like serious fucking fighting games.
Been an important trend.
Now guest characters though.
And Tekken, obviously no stranger to them. What are your thoughts in general of having guest characters in your games, and do they come with any sort of unique challenges that maybe the average Tekken fan might not think about, as just from, you know, from the perspective of a fan?
ありますね。
There is some things that maybe are behind the scenes that most people won't notice, that there's got to be a variety of conditions that align. We want that particular character in our game is the start. Does that IP owner want their property in our game? And then maybe both say, yeah, that's awesome, but there's in timing, like for our franchise, when do we want that character to appear? And for them, maybe they're like, no, we have plans, we can't have it until later, or we have plans that are coming later, so it has to be like right now. And then the fans want to see that in the game. So there's a variety of conditions that have to occur before all of this can work out to be in the game. And then I was just mentioning that even if that happens, which is the hard part, right? And then if you're using like a famous character that has a well-known actor attached to it, and their schedule is insane, and you have to be able to find time to get them into the studio to record voice lines and things like that. So there's so many obstacles that have to be overcome for that to happen. So it is quite a challenge.
Fucking Akuma. A dark
to ask
force
you,
has awakened. Yeah, it's like what we were talking about with like Soul Calibur, right? Well, I mean, that was like a whole different like topic entirely, because if Harada was asked to run Soul Calibur 6, then that would have been like a different like thing. But yeah, with guest characters, it's like the collaboration with like Nike and Chipotle, right? There's got to be some sort of like give or take, like both ends have to like get some money in their paychecks, right? So guest characters can be cool, but like it also, like as Harada translated by Murray says, also by like the fans, right? Guest characters can technically be like 50-50 though, right? I remember back in the day, like fucking Harada adding in Negan from The Walking Dead. Like Negan? Negan. I don't even watch Walking Dead. I just only see like clips of like who dies and who doesn't. I don't know the show's like lore or anything to have like an understanding. But Negan was like an out of field like left choice, as well as like Noctis. You know, Geese technically like makes sense because fighting game companies and, you know, father and father, right? Heihachi and Geese, right? So that properly like aligns, right? But a guest character has not just to like work for like, you know, the companies, but also like the fan reaction of said like guest character. I know a lot of people want Tifa Lockhart from Final Fantasy VII, right, to be in the game, considering FF7 Remake is doing so well. Baki, because martial arts and MMA influence. There's also like Kengan Ashura is also there, and there's many others, right? But it has to be deciding not just like on Tekken, but also like but also on the other side, the IP owner of said guest character. Are they okay with adding their character into Tekken, and will that character not just benefit Square Enix, but will it also not just benefit Tekken, but will it also benefit Square Enix, sort of thing, right? So a lot of like factors have to take into account, sort of thing.
If you are familiar with the recent rise of creator-led team tournaments like the Sajam Slam, which, you know, I know you had a thing with yesterday.
Again! Oh, the rainbow!
We were just talking about this.
Oh my god.
And the CR Cup. Have you checked any of these out? And what do you think of the team format of having teams that are led by professional players, but then the teams themselves are mostly made up of non-FGC streamers, YouTubers, and other content creators?
He actually does watch those events, and he's a fan of some of the VTubers or streamers as well that maybe might not be a FGC person. So he's aware of it and thinks it's a really a great thing that's happening, because you have these pros who know their games quite well, but you have the streamers who haven't perhaps played some of these games, and they all have their own communities who maybe don't play fighting games that are then become interested because of their favorite streamer. Another thing that's quite interesting that happens is that even if some of these people watch that stream and they find it interesting, maybe they're not even motivated to play the game themselves, but they still enjoy watching it and being a part of the audience and enjoying that experience. So that's a cool thing to see, fighting games reaching a new audience, but maybe they're not playing it. That's still cool though. I would say the same thing. You know, I mean, I'm a close friend of Sajam and some of these people, and you know, we're not directly involved that often, although we did make an appearance. It's great to see what they're doing with the game, and to see the journey for me especially. I was watching Lily Pichu, and to see her start off with no knowledge of Tekken, and then she just becomes so engrossed, and I see her face the hurdles that beginner players face, and then she overcomes them as she's playing people online, and then to see her face new problems as an intermediate player, and to see that journey is really cool, and to see her community experience that and grow with her is just totally awesome.
Yeah, and just like, you know, I love seeing it from this perspective of seeing the love of fighting games in real time blossom in someone, right?
Right.
How was it?
Yeah, that's like, I mean, I couldn't have said it better like myself, right? I mean, Harada, Michael Murray, beautifully like translated, like with the most topical of topic for like Tekken 8 was like Lily Pichu, like a very famous, like out of the ordinary streamer. I didn't even know who Lily Pichu was, and the more like research that I did, or the more like TikToks that I've been like seeing, yeah, she's like a variety streamer. She mostly does like League of Legends and IRL cooking with like her, or like drawing stuff, or you know, talking with like Pokimane and stuff like that with other popular like streamers. So that's like out of like, that's really like, I don't watch these people at all. Of course, right? I'm like, you know, I've been with fighting games since I was like a wee baby, when I was like fucking 10 years old at this point. This is like, my hand is like 10-year-old like me at this point. At that point. And I loved fighting games back then. But fighting games are like technically like hard, and it's a big like hard ask to get people into fighting games like even today. And imagine like the fucking pull that you have to do for, let's say, like my squad of like homies getting into like fighting games. Of course, you know, they have like veritable like knowledge, but oh, that's just like a piece of hair, sorry. What was I saying? Oh, right. But yeah, the thing with like fighting games is like they're so like charming, but it can be very, it's fun to like watch them, right? To see like that spectacle, to see like tournament appearances, big ass Evo events of seeing like Arslan Ash versus Atif go at it in Tekken 8 Grand Finals. It's a goddamn like spectacle, and you become like motivated to get into fighting games because it's such like an enriching experience. But I will say this, and I don't mean to like dampen, but it's like a big scary challenge, right? It's scary to like get into like a fighting game. You don't know what you're doing, you're just like pressing buttons, you're just only like going to be playing it for like a short time if you really have like a short attention span or something. Yeah, fighting games can be like a hurdle. It's a scary like challenge to like overcome. Once you overcome it, then you may like fighting games, right? But this is like totally like out of like left field. And I'm glad that like events that say Jam Slam exist for new players to be drawn in with, especially like something as like new as Tekken or Street Fighter. Because new always attracts people. Casuals are never going to go back into like an old school fighting game, maybe like Marvel vs. Capcom Fighting Collection, because everybody knows of MVC2. But yo, ask anybody to play like Battle for the Grid? Hardly. Ask a casual or a 5-year-old baby to play Battle for the Grid? No. They're old as fuck. They're not that enticing as newer fighting games, and that's why I always say, whatever is like new in the market, you play that. That's how they work, right? And you know, Tekken is like super popular because it's getting so much like audience appeal, right? Because it's Tekken, because it has so many players, because of the things that make it work for Tekken, that newcomers are going to be like joining in.